Welcome, everyone, to Riverkeeper's virtual Fisherman's Ball, our second virtual one, and perhaps our last one. This is going to be an unbelievably great evening. It's going to be very interesting. We have a lot of fantastic music. We're going to talk about and celebrate all the amazing things that Riverkeeper has done and will be doing. And we have not one, but two Big Fish Awards this evening. Before we get started, though, I've got to do a bit of housekeeping right now. If you haven't already, please take a minute. Click on my welcome video with instructions on navigating and exploring the site. That is really pretty interesting. Check out the links. Check out the links on the left-hand side of your screen. Donation, auction, and Riverkeeper merchandise sites. They're going to open a new window on your computer. There's a Riverkeeper trivia challenge with prizes and a help desk, of course, for anyone that has problems. Many of you have already connected with friends and other guests. You can see who is here by clicking the attendees link, and you can chat with the guests that are here as well. And please feel free to post your thoughts and comments on our Fisherman's Ball feed by clicking on the pencil at the top right-hand corner of your screen. So now on to the show. I want to congratulate the Riverkeeper team on an unbelievable year. Amid really tremendous adversity. The pandemic, well, it hit all of us hard, but as a Riverkeeper board member, I'm particularly proud of how this organization still came through for the river and for the shoreline communities and the people who live there from Albany to Brooklyn. We can celebrate many successes tonight, from bringing down old dams. That's one of the most things I'm most proud of that Riverkeeper does. They were blocking migrating fish from the, let's say this right, Quasaic Creek and Furnace Brook to stopping dangerous proposals for waste and debris processing facilities in Athens, Catskill, and Rensselaer. By the way, when we take those dams down, the fish come back the next year. There's more to come. And of course, there's our crowning achievement, the safe shutdown of Indian Point, which you're going to hear more about from Paul Gallay later in this show. Over the past year, the Riverkeeper staff created a strategic plan with 4 primary goals that offers a new vision for the Hudson. This plan is going to guide our work through the next 5 years, and you're going to hear more about that tonight. Sorry. Pardon me. I have to go to another screen now because my... Oh, there we go. Sorry. Pardon me 1 second. I had a little problem with my technology. There we go. Okay. We'll be proud tonight to honor Catherine Coleman Flowers with the Big Fish Award for her decades-long battles for environmental justice and equal access to clean water and sanitation. And of course, pardon me. And we're thrilled that Karina Gore, director of the Center for Earth Ethics and noted environmental activist, is on hand to present the award. And of course, in a bittersweet moment, we're presenting a second Big Fish Award tonight. And that will go to Paul Gallay, of course. Sorry, having a little problem with my technology here. And this will be in recognition of all the work that Paul has done over the past, 11 years. It's really quite amazing. Paul has reshaped Riverkeeper into an organization that cares deeply about water justice and recognizes that we are stronger for working in partnership with the communities on our shorelines, as well as an organization that also cares about the Hudson, its fish, and other creatures. Oh, and we continue to sue the bastards when it's needed to defend our river. That's a direct quote, by the way. You'll have a chance to discuss and ask questions about these issues with our amazing staff, board members, and well as special guests in one of the chat rooms after the awards ceremony.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ernest Hollerson, chair of the Riverkeeper board. And once again, I want to thank Dar for that wonderful, inspiring piece of music, wonderful performance. We're so glad that we're able to join with you tonight virtually here at our 2021 Fisherman's Ball. So many people have contributed to this event. Let me thank all of you for your support, which is essential to keeping Riverkeeper working to protect and restore the Hudson and safeguard our drinking water. Many thanks also to our extraordinary MC, Steve Leisman, for anchoring the Fisherman's Ball again this year. And once again, many thanks to Leadership Council member Dar Williams for her performance. As board chair, I'm grateful to all of our volunteer leadership groups. Our board of directors has been right there for Riverkeeper throughout the pandemic and through our recent strategic planning effort. And the board now guides our new vision for the Hudson in the years to come. We have a wonderful advisory board led by Jan Wysocki. We have an amazing Young Advocates Council led by Torin Kutnick. And we also have a great corporate stewardship and leadership council that support us in so many terrific ways. And of course, last but not least, there's Team Riverkeeper, our intrepid staff. Riverkeeper staff has achieved so much under the leadership of Paul Gallay for the last 11 years. Please give everyone on Riverkeeper staff and volunteer leadership a big virtual cheer. Next, I want to sort of welcome and salute Riverkeeper's extraordinary set of partners from other green NGOs, from the government, and from frontline communities. It's a pleasure to work with all of you, and we thank you for your leadership in the fight for clean water and the mighty Hudson. Finally, I want to acknowledge everyone with family or friends or coworkers suffering from or even taken from them by the pandemic. This has been a difficult period for the country, difficult period for the world. We're keeping all of you in our hearts tonight and every day. But to turn again to tonight, we have a lot to celebrate. Since we last met in September, Riverkeeper has racked up some notable achievements. We brought down 3 dams in Hudson Valley, opening up new habitat for migratory fish. We're protecting sources of drinking water in Hudson River watershed thanks to a new New York State program that our own Dan Shapley helped create. Thank you, Dan. We forced the FAA and the Port Authority to reveal deeply flawed analysis they used to argue for an A train to LaGuardia Airport that would be routed over an environmental justice community's waterfront park. Despite the protocols of life under the pandemic, the Riverkeeper community has stayed the course. Thousands of volunteers have helped Riverkeeper continue its water quality program, and Riverkeeper's 10th sweep on May 1st was the biggest ever. 2,600 volunteers, removing more than 29 tons of debris in 145 locations from Brooklyn to the Adirondacks. Riverkeeper and its allies lobbied furiously for a new federal law that requires the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to update its dangerously outdated Coastal Protection Project guidelines. The aggressive new law addresses the massive risks posed by climate change to both coastal communities and ecosystems. And of course, the shutdown of Indian Point, which will save more than 1 billion fish and other creatures from destruction, is just an incredible, monumental victory for the region, for this organization, and for life on this planet. Moving forward, Riverkeeper will continue to work on its signature campaigns, reducing the amount of sewage discharged into our waterways, fighting new fossil fuel projects in the Hudson River watershed, supporting local communities as they try to stop the mud and turbid water releases from the Shokin Reservoir flowing into the Esopus Creek, working with our science partners to study the effects of microplastics in our rivers and streams, and so much more. Work that will move Riverkeeper towards becoming a more diverse, inclusive, equitable, and just NGO. Now, every year, the Fisherman's Ball assures that Riverkeeper stays strong and is positioned to win more victories. So in addition to recognizing and honoring some of the consequential people that are here in this virtual room, we're hoping to raise $75,000 during tonight's event at our online auction, where you can also donate directly to our Fund a Cause initiative. I want to thank you now for whatever support you can provide. Your generosity tonight will drive our progress in 2021. We literally cannot do this work. We cannot carry out this mission without your support. In the coming years, Riverkeeper will be focusing on 4 main goals: adapting and mitigating the effects of climate change on our shorelines, protecting and restoring the Hudson River and its tributaries, improving water quality, and supporting shoreline communities. So please raise your cocktail glass, your wine glass, your beer mug, or whatever else you have on hand, and join me in a toast to the awesome Riverkeeper staff and the mighty Hudson. And now, let's continue our celebration with a short video from Jon Bowermaster and our team in New York City, our climate adaptation team, Mike DeLong, Christy Remain, and Rebecca Pryor.
Right now we're at Flushing Bay. We're sitting in this community beach in College Point. The communities that are adjacent to the bay have a really amazing asset in this huge waterway by just having vast open space. To actually have a space where you can breathe, where you can look out, where you can have quiet is so, so important, and I really think under-considered.
I'm always amazed when I come down here and you get the smell of the ocean and you have the sand, you have a beach, and yet you're just seconds away from Citi Field. It's pretty miraculous. And so being able to work in an urban environment on environmental issues is, I think, really important to me.
There are 8 million people here. There's 520 miles of coastline, so there's a lot of work to do. Every bit of shoreline has a community on it, has a community concerned about it, and a community that's affected by it. I mean, this is their backyard, essentially. It's the area that they go for solace for just a few minutes. They just have a little bit of shoreline to relax and enjoy the calm of the water.
I have a couple big concerns, and one is the continued combined sewer overflow that we have here, and we don't really see a future in which we don't have it. And then there's this other piece of climate change, where we're going to begin to see these waterways and the aquatic life in them change and shift. And with that, we'll also see, particularly in this urban context, with all of this shoreline, we'll see increased land pressures. We're going to have more pressure to develop and use these spaces, and that accessibility to nature that we have is going to diminish.
Most low-income communities and communities of color are really built up to the water's edge. So on the one hand, you have these kind of like mega rich, mega built up places at the water's edge right next to New York City Housing Authority, low-income housing built up to the water's edge. So how do those social communities interact?
People in this Flushing area, they're just an amazing, dynamic group of community advocates. Sometimes they reach out to us, and also we're reaching out to them, because really these are the folks who know this water body. These are the folks who know these communities.
Low-income communities and communities of color know their environmental issues and have been organizing around them for a long time and are excited to engage in those issues.
To me, doing environmental work is just so important because it's integral to who we are as human beings. We need nature more than nature needs us. We need it for our mental health. We need it for places and spaces to commune and find joy. I think it's just how we are human.
The end goal, the end sort of vision of all of this is that all of our waters will be usable by all New Yorkers. That we don't have to think about getting in the water. It's just something that we do here. It's all summer, every waterway, you can walk into that water and not be scared.
Hi again, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that taste of Riverkeeper's efforts to help prepare the shoreline for the effects of sea level rise and more frequent flooding in New York City. We've seen a bunch of it already. And of course, a critical piece of this work revolves around reducing greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Riverkeeper's been supporting the rise of renewables and sustainable solar and wind power in New York for many years now. Our work on renewable energy is all the more relevant because of Riverkeeper's and Paul Gallay's signature victory, the safe shutdown of Indian Point, which is the topic of our next film segment.
After 60 years, Indian Point finally closed. An amazing result that was possible because of decades of work by folks who saw the plant get older and older, the risks go up and up, the availability of replacement energy that's clean and green gets stronger and stronger, and the stars finally aligned. April 30, 2021, plant closed down once and for all. Now that we got the damn thing closed, it's time to actually remove the radiation from the reactors. It's time to get the spent fuel out of the pools and into safer dry cask storage. They call that decommissioning. It can take as long as 60 years. Riverkeeper and the plant owner and the state and a number of other stakeholders have negotiated an agreement that could cut that time from 60 years down to a dozen years. And Riverkeeper's been added to the Decommissioning Oversight Board, so we're going to make sure that this gets done right, as well as getting done soon. Now we can put some energy towards clean replacement energy, stopping plants like Danskammer and fostering a new green energy economy. We can put some new resources into clean drinking water. We can put some new resources into habitat restoration. We can keep working hard to make sure that all the waters in the Hudson watershed are safe for swimming, fishing, boating. One thing you really need to understand is how many people were part of this victory. People with Riverkeeper decades ago, people from partner organizations, people from government agencies. The folks who really understood the risk had a clear-eyed sense of the need to close the place and got the job done. There is no end of reward working for an organization like Riverkeeper. You have folks who are counting on you to make the river healthier, that the river teems with life again, that the river's safe enough to let your kids swim in it again. That's an awesome sense of responsibility and an awesome sense of accomplishment if you're able to get the job done. We got a couple of jobs done in the last decade or so, and I'm proud to have been part of it.
Tonight, I have the honor and privilege of presenting Paul Gallay, Riverkeeper President at Hudson Riverkeeper, one of our highest honors, the Big Fish Award. This is a celebratory moment in light of Riverkeeper's victories since 2010, and in light of this year's monumental achievement, the shutdown of the last Indian Point nuclear reactor. This evening is also a bittersweet moment. Last year, Paul announced that the closure of Indian Point, as well as the completion of Riverkeeper's new 5-year strategic plan, was the appropriate inflection point to step down and write the next chapter of his career in the U.S. environmental movement. It takes courage and wisdom to step away from an outfit like Riverkeeper. After being at the helm for 11 years, his decision is entirely consistent with the arc of his career as an environmental lawyer in the government sector and as the leader of environmental NGOs. Paul landed on Planet Riverkeeper in 2010. Between then and now, he served as the architect, coach, and player coach for an impressive portfolio of victories that make Riverkeeper a force to be reckoned with on the Hudson and its tributaries, the wider watershed, and in the corridors of power in New York, Albany, and Washington. Now, leading a science-driven NGO that is as complex as the Hudson watershed itself is somewhat similar to being the centerpiece of a jazz orchestra. You may front the group, but you have to know when to give the other musicians space for their solos. As Riverkeeper's band leader, Paul devoted 11 years to understanding which policy pathway would hold the most promise, as in when to litigate, when to collaborate, when to negotiate, and when to use some combination of all three. As that band leader, he's invested countless energy and hours in inspiring those who love the Hudson, waterfront communities, and clean drinking water to translate those deeply held convictions into three forms of tangible support: financial support, intellectual capital, and social capital. For a comprehensive summary of what Paul Gallay and Team Riverkeeper have achieved together, I highly recommend that you consult two sources. The synopsis on our website is one, and the resolution adopted by both houses of the New York State Legislature and read into the record on Thursday, June 9th is the other. It's not every day that an environmental leader wins bipartisan recognition from the powers that be in Albany. The upside of making this award presentation to Paul is twofold. It's a recognition of his achievements, and it's the down payment on his next chapter in America's environmental movement. For Paul, there is no such thing as kayaking off into the sunset. On the question of Paul's next chapter, I'm pleased to let everyone here know that the folks behind launching Columbia University's new climate school have asked Paul to design and lead a project focused on helping coastal communities prepare for sea level rise and climate-fueled storms in a way that, as Paul says, quote, will keep people high and dry while protecting shoreline ecosystems. Before I invite Paul to the stage, please lift your glass and join me in toasting Paul Gallay's great run at Riverkeeper, as we also offer him our best wishes as he charts a new course that will be good for Columbia, good for coastal communities, and good for shoreline ecosystems. To Paul. And now, Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Ernest. That was an out-of-body experience. I don't know where to begin. Actually, I do. I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from Cold Spring, which is part of the Lenape-Hoking, the Lenape homeland, which we are currently speaking from and which we have to acknowledge is the Lenape homeland. I want to thank everybody who's already been thanked, and that's not necessarily an easy thing because it could sound repetitive, but it shouldn't. You know, the board, working with Ernest and Kate as board chair and co-chair for the last 3+ years. Everybody else on the board who has helped transform Riverkeeper into the organization that I'm proud to step away from because I'm no longer necessary. The organization is evolved to the extent that others can take it in new directions. All of the volunteer boards, the partners that we have worked with, both in government, nonprofit, at the local level, the advocacy organizations. And one group that hasn't been thanked yet, and that I don't want to let any more time go by before I thank, is I want to thank my wife, Tracy, and my daughter, Amelia, because their support, their advice, their wisdom, and their love is the biggest reason why I'm able to, receive this award and have stayed with Riverkeeper and supported Riverkeeper so well. I want to thank my brother, Michael. I want to thank all of my friends who are with us this evening. I want to congratulate Catherine Flowers for the work that she is doing under extremely challenging circumstances to bring water from far worse places than most of the places here on the Hudson and the Hudson watershed into a better stage than it has been in. But I think fundamentally the staff are the heroes here, and the staff are the ones who deserve special recognition. We find ourselves looking at victories, most of which I didn't conceive of, I didn't build, I didn't engineer, I didn't get funded, and I didn't carry out. Things like our work with the Hudson 7, our work to foster a ban on plastic bags, our work to stop the anchorages that otherwise would be hosting crude oil barges by now, our work to stop the large storm barriers that were engineered for the Hudson and the lower reaches of the New York Bight. These are staff achievements. These are the achievements of an organization that is not dependent on one person. And that's why I certainly hope there's a wonderful new president that comes in after me. but he or she is going to find themselves with such great allies and great support. Now, this job has meant the world to me. It's been the greatest opportunity of my professional career. I've had a tremendous amount of fun. We've caused the trouble when we should cause trouble, and we've collaborated when we should collaborate. And it's really proved the power of the old maxim of combining a commitment to science and law with having the courage of your convictions and not flinching when the going gets tough. But fundamentally, the most important thing, being community driven. Being community driven is Riverkeeper's secret weapon. It's our superpower. And I know that we will always succeed as long as we maintain that community centeredness. To the extent I was able to succeed as Riverkeeper leader in these last 11 years, I'm proud of that. To the extent where I could have done better, I at least did my best. I know that, and I know that you all are going to do better still. As I say, it's been the honor of my professional career to lead Riverkeeper these last 11 years. It's really been an enormous blast. And I'm looking forward to the work that Ernest has described that I'm going to be doing with Columbia, because I'm going to do some of it with Riverkeeper as well. My colleagues have agreed to support that work and collaborate with us, which is pretty exciting. We're going to see a wonderful video in just a moment. The next in our series of videos tracking to our new vision for the Hudson, which is of our dam removal and habitat restoration work with my wonderful colleagues, John Lipscomb and George Jackman. So again, thank you for this honor. Thank you to Bruce Larson for yet another amazing sculpture. It's been wonderful, and I'll see you all out on the river. Thank you.
We're on Furnace Brook in Cortland. I prefer to call it the Jamawissa Creek. The Jamawissa means place of small beaver, and that's what the Native Americans called it. We're standing where a dam once stood for at least 100 years or more. There's no longer a dam. Last fall we came in here with some machinery, a tractor with a breaker they call it, and there's an exuberant joy that you feel when you see that thing demolishing that dam. And it's a form of liberation. To me, it was like tearing down the Berlin Wall. So that dam was here for well over 100 years, and within one day with that machine, we took it down. Dams impair the water quality. They heat it up, they create the potential for harmful algal blooms, and they block fish. The Hudson River flows from the sum total of all these creeks. So when we remove a dam, we also help the Hudson River.
As I say, everything is connected, and these are like parts of the circulatory system of the river and its watershed. And we have damaged the ecology of the Hudson Valley and its watershed beyond words. You know, the numbers of fish that were reported here by the first Europeans, they were dumbfounded by the number of fish that they saw, the number of waterfowl that they would see flying by in the fall. It's a fraction now, but we are in a position to try to heal.
That's part of our mission. That's who we are as Riverkeeper. We are beholden to these creatures. That's what we work for. We work for the creeks and the organisms that live here.
The habitat improvement and dam removal program at Riverkeeper has become one of the pillars of the organization, and it'll never change.
This is a frontier, and we hope it becomes contagious to other organizations. We were the first, and we worked in partnership with the DEC, and we can see that this is going to expand, and we hope many more will come down. Removing a dam, you change the world, not just for yourself or the creek, but for all the organisms. And you've opened up the habitat, and you create these riparian corridors. You get to change the world. What more could you ask for?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Boone. I am an actress in The Blacklist and the Underground Railroad. And when I'm not shooting, I live in the Hudson Valley. So Riverkeeper is an incredibly important organization to me because there's nothing more valuable than clean drinking water to support our lives. So I am part of the Leadership Council and I support Riverkeeper, and I am here to urge you to do so on this very important annual fundraiser. As you know, Paul Gallay has been an incredible president at this organization, and he will be leaving us in 2 weeks. We will miss you so much, Paul. You've been just wonderful. And we're so glad that you were here, not only for the success of the organization, but to set us up for success for years to come. And what will help that is a generous donation from all of you this evening. So support clean drinking water, support rebuilding the watershed, planting trees, improving biodiversity in our river, and helping with climate resilience. I believe that nothing is more essential to climate justice than fighting for environmental justice on the ground locally. So tonight, volunteer leadership is matching up to $75,000 in donations. So it's a good night to give.
We're not kidding here. We actually have some breaking news, and this is not planned, unless you think that the great Paul Gallay has control over the Wall Street Journal, which he didn't or doesn't. But the Wall Street Journal just broke this story saying that the plan to build a $2.1 billion air train at LaGuardia has been delayed after opponents, and Riverkeeper is cited throughout this article, raised concern about the environmental review process for the project. That story is right now, has just broken in the Wall Street Journal. We did not plan this, although I can't say the timing is terrible here. But you can go take a look later after this terrific presentation we're about to give you over the next several minutes here. You can go take a look at that. I want to just do some personal business very quickly, and then I'm going to get back to the script. So real quickly, I need to say thank you and goodbye to the wonderful Paul Gallay. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you, and I'm going to miss you dearly, but you have left the organization in terrific hands. I want to tell you very quickly why I am a member of the board of Riverkeeper, and it's because I want to save the planet. And of course, I cannot save the planet, but my thinking is this. It's that maybe we can work together and save one river, and somebody else can work together and save another river and the ocean. And then all of these people doing these individual local things will add up to saving the planet. Or as Arlo Guthrie said, pretty soon you have a movement with everybody singing Alice's Restaurant. And then just one other thing, which is a shout out to my very good friends, John Lipscomb and George Jackman, who I've had a chance to work with this year on a new project that Riverkeeper is part of, which is Save a Million Bass. It's an effort to educate fishermen about the new rules and regulations to help save striped bass, which are once again in crisis, and to recommendations for better catch and release. So those are my personal notes here. I want to welcome everybody back. We have the breaking news, my personal remarks, and please, I want you to all go bid on your favorite auction items. There's some wonderful fishing tackle, by the way. We have some fishing tackle, and that money is going to go to Save a Million Bass for the fishing tackle, which is a new joint Riverkeeper initiative that is, of course, dear to my heart. We brought together Save the Sound. We brought together the Peconic Bay Keepers and more organizations coming together to help striped bass. Of course, if you didn't know this, Hudson River is the second largest spawning grounds for striped bass on the East Coast. There are some amazing trips on offer: sailing, kayaking, even a polo lesson. Thank you to Riverkeeper's many friends for donating such an amazing array of experiences and items. Now, I'm going to update you on our progress toward our goal of $75,000 in just a little bit. Don't forget, all donations tonight go 3 times as far thanks to our generous volunteer leaders. That's pretty amazing here. The auction, it's open till 9, so you can make sure nobody outbids you. Let's kick off now the second half of our program with a look at Dan Shapley's science team. They are hard at work improving the most important thing we do here for stripers, for the habitat, for the river, for people, improving water quality in the Hudson River with the help of about 100 amazing community scientists.
I grew up in the Hudson Valley. It's my home. I grew up on the Wappinger Creek, splashing around in the same creeks that we're testing now to see if they're safe. And I have a son who is doing that splashing now. So it's a very direct connection when I think about improving water quality for all of us to enjoy in that way. Testing the water quality and engaging the public in that testing is really core to what Riverkeeper does, because it connects people directly to water they care about. It gives us information that we can use for advocacy. And then, of course, it gets people engaged and helps them develop as advocates. And developing those communities, working with them, is really important to everything that we want to achieve.
What we're discovering and what we see in people is that they're really looking for any sort of chance they can get to go out there and make some sort of a difference for the natural world and to take care of each other and to take care of the planet. We're able to give them that entry point. And what we're able to do is then translate that into helping us with data collection, helping us with developing a scientific understanding of the river. And all in all, that was able to translate into us being better able to protect the river and kind of do our jobs in that way.
It's one of the great assets of the program that you can't measure. It's sort of intangible, but it's that connection that makes people speak up for the stream, or speak up when there's a issue or a threat. It's so critical and important.
You know, it's an act of care, and like it's caring for the river, it's caring for the organization, it's caring for each other. And we are working towards something that's kind of idealistic, right? Like you're fighting for a living river. And that's the work that I think is really fulfilling for all of us right now at Riverkeeper, is looking into those questions and how we can better take care of each other.
We're thinking about how to create shorter-term projects that are rooted in civic engagement and that really use data collection by communities for specific civic advocacy objectives. Trying to really broaden our reach out to new communities, new groups, new people, and to start talking about a little bit of a wider range of issues.
It starts with a simple thing, someone dipping a bottle in the water, but what grows from there is a building of a community. People come together around a particular waterway and around their neighbors, and that gives them the structure to solve any problem. And that's really what we're trying to do, is give people the capacity and help them solve problems around water. This is us, this is our health, and it matters to me, it matters to my neighbors, my family. Everything that we do is to support our own health and our own longevity on this earth and our harmonious relationship with this incredible water body and all of the life that it sustains.
Hello, my name is Karenna Gore, and I am the founder and executive director of the Center for Earth Ethics at Union Theological Seminary, and a proud member of the board of directors of Riverkeeper. It is my honor to introduce the next recipient of Riverkeeper's highest honor, the Big Fish Award. Catherine Coleman Flowers is the founder of the Center for Rural Enterprise and Environmental Justice, and an internationally renowned advocate for clean water and sanitation for all, with a particular focus on the inequities of wastewater management in the United States. Born and raised in Lowndes County, Alabama, Catherine is a self-described country girl who has valued and sought to protect and conserve the environment for her whole life. Her parents were active in the civil rights movement, and from a young age, she has been an organizer and a fierce advocate for justice. She is grounded in the communities she advocates for, and her leadership in connecting the issues of civil rights, poverty, climate change, water, and wastewater have just broken through to the highest levels of civic awareness and policymaking. Just this past year, Catherine was named a MacArthur Fellow for Environmental Health Advocacy and a Vice Chair of the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council. She also published a highly acclaimed book titled Waste: One Woman's Fight Against America's Dirty Secret. Catherine is a board member of the Natural Resources Defense Council and the Climate Reality Project, and she is the co-chair of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences Commission on Accelerating Climate Action. I have had the pleasure of working closely with Catherine for the past 5 years at the Center for Earth Ethics, where she now sits on our advisory board. And it has been an inspiring experience to see how she has come to know and appreciate and engage with the great work of Riverkeeper. It is my honor to present the Big Fish Award to Catherine Coleman Flowers.
To Paul Gallay and the Board of Directors of the Riverkeeper organization, thank you very much for presenting me with the Big Fish Award. It was a delight to receive it and to know that it was also designed by a fellow Alabamian. My remarks are going to be very short, but one of the things that we all acknowledge is that water is life. And because water is life, we have to work to bring to communities that sit along rivers environmental and climate justice. For an example, in New York, the town of Mount Vernon has been dealing with wastewater problems for a very long time, that it was recently featured in The Guardian as one of those areas that has sanitation issues. Let's work together in trying to find long-term solutions. And those solutions are going to be in seeking and pursuing technological advances so that when we treat waste, it comes out clean and does not contaminate our rivers. Because rivers are a source of life for all of us, because water is life. Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome back. Please enjoy right now the final segment of Jon Bowermaster's highlights from the Riverkeeper crew at the Port of Queens.
The Hudson River watershed is 13,400 square miles, so hundreds of communities, lots and lots of issues. Today, we're here in Queens, which is upriver. Now, there's a lot of solid waste management issues that really need attention, and Riverkeeper is committed to being on the ground and supporting communities in the ways that we can to help to get a better result. We know that the upriver has really been beyond an emerging threat as the solid waste management issues of construction and demolition, which is also known as C&D, incineration, municipal waste, and a lot of these projects are coalescing up here, sort of out of sight, out of mind.
The hamlet of Queens is a very old town. It goes back to the 17th century. There are something like 700 or 800 people who live here on the river. Although we tend to think of pollution being sort of the Cuyahoga River, big industrial cities and that sort of thing, this is a town that has its own industrial pollution, and because it's small and it's forgotten, there's this sense that it doesn't matter what we do here because it won't affect that many people. My own property, which is about a mile downriver, is 20 acres of riparian land that I'm trying to restore to a healthy habitat. And I felt personally threatened. I didn't know what pollution would be drifting downriver or coming back and forth to the tides and changing what was possible on the land that I own. And the more I read about the quality of the environment in this stretch of the river, the more worried I became.
A lot of times we hear from communities about issues they're concerned about, and then we are able to go in and investigate to see if there are any legal hooks we can do. Alternatively, a lot of times we help the community empower themselves. We help them understand the process of engaging in these legal processes to try to affect change in their own communities.
The fact that Jon has been doing patrols up here every year, I'm profoundly grateful to Riverkeeper for doing that. Riverkeeper has been, I'd say, the organization that kept me going.
We're trying to demystify what's going on in the upper watershed so that we can make sure that the river is protected and the communities are protected and everything that relies on the river and a clean river and clean air and clean water. So it's a big job, but it's one that Riverkeeper can certainly achieve.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Martin, and I am the Director of the Community Partnerships Program at Riverkeeper. This new program encompasses the Hudson River watershed geographically, and that's 13,000 square miles of communities, and we're charged in supporting them, supporting those seeking to envision and enact positive change in their relationships with the Hudson River, its tributaries, and drinking water supplies. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce one of Riverkeeper's upriver partners, the Media Sanctuary. And in the midst of the pandemic in June of last year, together we established the Water Justice Lab. This 3-year collaboration has established a water quality sampling lab in central North Troy, New York, and working with diverse communities to educate about water justice and how to make a difference. While developing the advocacy capacity and strengthening a network of environmental justice advocates, we're focused on water issues in the Hudson River watershed. A key to the program's success are its 3 youth water justice fellows. And now in its 2nd year, under the guidance of Media Sanctuary and with the support from Riverkeeper Science and Community Partnerships Program, Troy students will focus on community science and podcast productions to illuminate water issues that disproportionately affect Black, Indigenous, and people of color as international scientists and bioartists celebrate the Nature Lab's opening on June 27th at noon to coincide with our 2nd round of water testing in the lab with the Water Justice Fellows. And so for tonight, I'm pleased to be here to introduce the Water Justice Fellows' new film, Home Along the Hudson. Enjoy it.
All right, we're walking to the river, boys. This is where we're going. Most people here are Black, and then there's some white people here, but then there are also white people that have lower income. We all know the pollution in Troy is bad. We all know the pollution in the Hudson is bad, but we don't know what to do because no one's working to help us. I feel like it just makes everyone feel like they're not cared about. Well, I knew the river was pretty close, but it's my first time really taking this route to see the river.
Do you think that a lot of the rest of the community here also haven't really experienced this?
To be honest, I don't even think many people know that the river is right here. The river still needs help, and we are the ones that can help it.
The true history is kept from our children, and in this life, whoa, illusion reigns.
We are forming the Water Justice Lab at the Sanctuary for Independent Media in partnership with Riverkeeper to not only establish a water quality sampling lab for the Hudson River, but also to educate people about water justice.
We learned this year that water justice is just one aspect of the broader environmental justice movement. Communities of color and low-income communities like North Troy are disproportionately impacted by polluting industries. Environmental racism is the disproportionate impact of environmental hazards on people of color. Over the course of spring 2021, we interviewed several people about their perspective on environmental justice and climate justice.
Do you know what environmental justice is?
Yes.
All right. You tell me what environmental justice is from your perspective.
I think environmental justice is just like taking care of the planet and having like equal access to just like great resources from the planet for everybody.
I think that's a great definition of environmental justice. And I understand environmental justice as a matrix. I see racism as that object that has evolved, right? And we can see through the lens of environmental justice how that impacts us in tangible ways. I take police brutality, for example, something that's unique to our communities and to our personal environments, and understand that as an environmental justice issue.
Climate justice is class justice and racial justice and all of those other things, because those are the communities being hit most by it. This is the way it's always been from the start. Colonialism, like fueled by white supremacy, capitalism, it was all about ripping people's connections from the land.
So we originally lived along the Mahicanatuck River, and that's the Hudson River. First it was the Dutch, then it was the French, then it was the English. It wasn't voluntary removal, we were forced every time.
And then we got to do one more time. This is going to be our actual sample. Tilt upstream. Perfect. And then we're going to pull it out. Yep. And we're going to cap it. Do we have the cap?
So this weekend at Nature Lab, we are finally going to be testing 30 samples of water all along the Hudson River.
And I feel like today we got a proper introduction from Sebastian.
All of our water samples. All right, let's begin. More than 24 hours, yeah, grab that one. So look at the in time on top.
Oh, I get first look?
Yeah, you get first look.
Oh, whoa!
Ooh.
Whoa!
Oh, God.
They look like jellyfish.
I mean, it's fun to look at, but dang, that water's dirty. You grab the container, you put it under that light, and it's like a little case, and whatever containers glow, they're the ones that have bacteria in them, and you'll count how many there are, how many that glow, and you'll write down your recordings. So we can figure out, like, is downstream have more bacteria than upstream, or is it the other way around, and just find patterns and certain things like that.
What's going on?
They're so bright.
You didn't fry your eyeballs because it's so bright?
all the big ones are glowing. Every single one.
What was more surprising to me was seeing the amount of pollution that was in the more polluted water, but it didn't surprise me that the more polluted water was from the more urban areas. I think people don't realize how closely related the environment is with racial discrimination. What we could do with the information is educate others and ourselves, so then we can find out new ways and come up with new ways and ideas of trying to make the water better for these communities.
In this life, the true history is kept from our children, and in this life, whoa, illusion reigns. In this life, we continue to seek answers from the lying leaders. In this life, we live for food and food alone. Now see now, I am so tired of witnessing children that are filled with need. I am so tired of living in a world saturated with greed. And see my spirit cries out against the injustices committed upon my peoples. I am so tired.
Really amazing. Thank you to the Media Sanctuary and to the extraordinary fellows from the Water Justice Lab, Genesis Cooper, Gabby Espada, and Shansanik Pollock. Your stories about the Hudson and growing up in Troy were truly compelling, and we all benefit from your hopeful message. So, with you guys as the environmentalists of the future, our planet is in very good hands. We are well on our way, but not quite at our goal of $75,000. Let me just check. I think we're at 56,000, if I'm not mistaken. We have work to do, folks, and a little bit of time left to do it in the the auction is open until 9 o'clock. We are doing Paul and Catherine proud and assuring the Riverkeeper crew will be able to tackle some of the huge challenges on the Hudson. Thank you to everyone who's been watching, giving, and supporting Riverkeeper's amazing work now and into the future performance. We're reaching the final part of the evening when you go to visit with the Riverkeeper crew. On the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a link to about 15 breakout rooms with various Riverkeeper staff and some of our volunteer leaders ready to chat with you. Please feel free to pop in and out of as many as you want. The rooms will be open for about 45 minutes and the auction will close at 9 p.m. sharp. If you've won, you'll be notified by email. So thank you all for logging in and supporting our favorite nonprofit and the Riverkeeper crew who in the worlds of Paul Gallay rely on science and are data-driven, support the grassroots, and don't flinch when the going gets tough. Riverkeeper. So, and just a quick thank you to the whole staff. Putting together these virtual events is very difficult. It's somehow in its own way more difficult than that. So they did a really wonderful job of putting this together. Thank you for your donations and stay tuned. There could be a annual benefit concert coming up sometime. I don't know, maybe October. There's a lot of things going on at Riverkeeper. Check out the website. Have a great night. Thank you again for donating. Thank you for joining.